My name is Ludmila, or Mila for short, and this is Dennis with me, and we're going to be asking the questions. Dr. Hovind will be doing the answering part of it, so we get to do the easy part. He does the difficult part of it. Right. We have around 44 questions, so we'll try to get through as many as we can. Question number 1 says this: what was the source of light and heat before God created the sun?
If you read Genesis chapter 1, God made this, it says, God said, let there be light. And then later, God made the sun, moon, and stars. I think he himself is light. God is light. In him is no darkness, nor shadow of turning. And so I think God made the sun and stars later on purpose so we would know not to worship them. We should worship him. He is the light of the world. There were no trees or plants to need sunlight anyway until day 4, so it wouldn't matter. But God himself would have to be the source of the light, I believe.
Thank you.
All right, and then for the second question we have, why did God create the stars, and why is it that we can only see a fraction of them here from Earth?
All right, brother, those are all hyperlinks. If you just take the mouse and push on the word stars, it'll take me right to the right slide up there, the 4th one down. Okay. The star, there's no question there's a whole lot of stars out there in the solar system. We don't even know how many we can see. We're not even sure that we see how would you know when you've seen the last one? Maybe there's one behind it, you know. So current estimate is there are 70 sextillion stars that are visible from Earth with the biggest telescopes we have. If stars were forming, there would be about 6,655,000 forming every minute for 20 billion years, yet nobody's ever seen a single star form. They don't even know how they could form. Nobody has a clue on that. So why God made the stars, so many of them, I think it's just for the oh wow factor, so we'll say, man, what a mighty God we serve. Maybe it's for future, for when we get to heaven. He's got plans for us to go visit and tour these things. I don't know. But it is pretty cool just to lay out on your back and look at them, you know, on a dark night. The Bible says he counts the number of the stars. Now, this is a very interesting verse. That does not mean he knows how many there are, though I'm sure he does. Each star has its own number. He knows the number of each star. That is star number 4729635874772. He knows the number. The Bible doesn't say he knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows the number of the hairs on your head. Each hair has a number. Some of you would be very easy to count how many, 5, but but he knows the number of each hair. So I think the stars were made for us to say, wow, what a mighty God we serve. And Satan is using them to draw people away from God. And it could be because Psalm 148 says, ye praise him, ye waters that be above the heavens. The only verse on the topic that I know of, Psalm 148. There may still be a canopy of water or ice beyond the stars. We don't know how far they go, but if they do stop, then the obvious next question is, okay, what's on the other side? It could be that everything we see and marvel at as this huge universe is in one of those glass balls on God's dresser that he picks up and shakes once in a while, you know. So I don't know. Okay, next question.
Thank you. Where in the Bible does it talk about other planets?
There's no place in the Bible where it mentions other planets. It just talks about heavenly bodies, you know, sun, moon, and stars. So if you count Pluto, and they argue about that one, we know that there are 9 planets around our solar system. There is no evidence of any planets around any other solar systems, any other stars. There could be some, I don't know, but there's no hard evidence of that. What they do is they look at a star, and they see the star wobble a little bit. And they assume a planet is going around, and it's tugging the star, called gravitational tug, so it's pulling the star back and forth. One guy spent hours and years cataloging all the stars that wobble, saying, oh, that one's got planets going around it, and oh, that one's got planets going around it. After years of writing down all the stars that have planets going around, they discovered the base of his telescope was loose. It was his telescope wobbling, not the star. So there's no hard evidence of any stars having planets around them. Now, I will say this, even if there were, that would not be evidence of life on other planets. We can see 8 other planets from here. We know there's no life on those. And the Bible says Eve is the mother of all living. So I would have a real hard time believing there's any stars, any planets, period, around other stars, or certainly any with life around them. So I'll get off topic here. The Bible does not talk about any other planets, though. I think the planets do all kinds of things for the Earth. Number one, they kind of run interference for us. Asteroids and meteors coming through space are much more likely to hit the bigger planets like Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. They're kind of going around sweeping up the solar system before they hit us, so they're good protection for us, if nothing else. There may be lots more reasons for them too. Okay?
We actually had one question that's asking, what is circular reasoning?
Circular reasoning is reasoning in a circle. You know, why? How do you know the age of the layers? By the fossils. How do you know the age of the fossils? By the layers. But how do you know the age of the layers? By the fossils. It's circular reasoning. It's absolutely stupid. But the evolutionary theory is full of that.
Thank you. What is a paleontologist and what do they study?
Paleo means old or ancient, and ology means study of. Paleontologist is a person who studies ancient things, paleo things. They would study ancient civilizations. Probably paleontology would be different than archaeology or zoology or biology or all the ology. There's 100 of ologies out there. So a paleontologist would study ancient civilizations to try to learn about them. You can dig up an old city and learn, you know, how they cooked their food, what kind of houses they lived. You know, sometimes you can't learn much about them, but so a paleontologist is a study of ancient things, but involves, the further back you go, the more guesswork it involves. It becomes real shaky ground after a while. Hit the first button, just number 1, and then home. There you go. Okay.
All right, and the next question is, what are trilobites?
Trilobites, those creatures I showed you before, tri means 3, lobes means section. They have 3 lobes. Their body's divided into 3 sections. Like a little roly-poly, you find them in the woods all the time. Trilobe means have 3 lobes on 3 parts to their body. It's just parts to their shell. That's all it means. A trilobe bite. And they come huge and little bitty.
Thank you. What is a geologic column and how thick is it?
The geologic column is a pure fiction that we talked about in the last session about the layers of rock, and they give them all names. It varies in thickness all over the world. Some places there's none on the surface. It's all been washed away. You have, you know, what's called the basement rock or the basalt right at the surface. The geologic column is actually the evidence for Noah's flood. A flood would automatically cover the earth with thousands of layers of mud. And in some places, as the mountains lifted up and the valleys sank down, they'd be completely washed away back down to the bare original rock. So I think 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by what's called sedimentary rock, rock that settled out from a flood. Sedimentary, all the geologic column would be sedimentary rock. And it doesn't exist any place in the world in its entirety. If it did, it would have to be 1,000 feet thick. There are places where the mud layers, like Grand Canyon, are several thousand feet thick, but it still could have all formed in one big flood in the days of Noah. Parts of the earth has none of it, showing. Other parts have lots of it showing. Okay.
Right. It's possible you might have covered some of these already, but are there any living dinosaurs today?
Can you shut that down and go to 3B? I have over 7,000 slides in PowerPoint. It helps if you ask the questions in the same order that I have the answers. But if you'll watch my seminar series, sound booth. Hey, there, shut that down. 3B, okay, good. Living dinosaurs, I cover for probably an hour all the stuff I gathered over the years of dinosaurs that might still be alive. This is not forwarding here. There we go, okay. My daughter's wedding. No, there we go. Okay. There's lots of evidence that man has lived with dinosaurs, like they carved their images on the Ica stones. Textbooks all say they lived millions of years ago, which is just pure baloney. They've always lived with man. But as far as living dinosaurs, this guy in National Geographic says, no human being has ever seen a live dinosaur. There's no way he can know something like that. He'd have to talk to everybody that ever lived. We talk about how dinosaurs are simply reptiles that never stop growing. Noah took them on the ark. But dinosaurs still living. This is a Roman mosaic from the 2nd century after Christ, made out of small tiles on a shower floor. Why would they put long-necked dinosaurs on their ceramic tile? There is just a mountain of evidence that man has lived with dinosaurs. In the swamp in Africa, right there, they're called the Lakwala Swamp. It's 55,000 square miles, which means it's huge. That's bigger than Arkansas, bigger than any one of those yellow states, same size as the red states. In the Congo, there have been reports regularly of dinosaurs still living. This is from 1948, Saturday Evening Post, where they saw a dinosaur still alive. Many people have come back from hunting game over there and say, man, there are dinosaurs alive in the swamp. Giant crocodiles have been found in there. There's a 24-footer caught in the Congo back in '05. That's a big crocodile. There's one with a deer in its mouth. I don't know if you can see the picture, it's not very good, but there's the crocodile here carrying a deer. I think there's another picture of it. Let me see. Yeah, there it is. So, see, crocodiles and alligators and reptiles in general never stop growing. They never stop. Once you get to a certain size, you no longer have any enemies. It's all downhill from there. But this book, The Living Dinosaur by Roy Mackal, the natives in the swamp called it Mokele Mbembe. That was their name for it. They said, oh yeah, they're active at night. They're very rarely seen. He found footprints of it. Missionary friend of mine, Eugene Thomas, he died years ago, but he was there 43 years as a missionary. He said, oh yeah, my pygmies killed one and ate it. There are reports in that swamp, and I go for an hour on my video number 3, all the evidence I've been able to gather about dinosaurs that might still be alive. I don't think there's lots of them, and you need to be careful when you go to the mall. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there are reports all over the world, like Loch Ness Monster, Lake Champlain Monster. William Gibbons and I wrote this book together, first book I ever wrote about dinosaurs still living. We did that probably for junior high age kids. But there's a lot of stuff on my video number 3. There's some of the expeditions to the Congo where I think all of them have come back reporting, yep, there's dinosaurs in that swamp, still alive. Let's see. In Brazil, 1907, Colonel Fawcett reported seeing a dinosaur right there in the Amazon jungle. He said that's what it looked like. They found the footprints of it. But all through history, they've been reported. Let me get a couple of the more modern ones here. Big snakes. Loch Ness. Loch simply means lake in Scottish language. Loch Ness is Lake Ness. It's 24 miles long, mile to a mile and a half wide, and 900 feet deep. Loch Ness is big enough that everybody in the world could go drowned in it at the same time. It'll hold 7.5 billion people if you wanted to drown everybody. But there have been many reports in Loch Ness of sightings of this creature that they claim is the Loch Ness Monster, okay? Most of them claim it's a plesiosaur, this guy right there. So that is, this evolutionist wrote, there's one thing wrong with this theory. Plesiosaurs became extinct 70 million years ago. No, there's nothing wrong with the theory of a dinosaur still being alive. There's something wrong with the idea they lived 70 million years ago. That's what's wrong. But if you watch my video number 3, I cover probably 100 sightings in the last 50 years of what appear to be dinosaurs still alive. Okay? Hit the home page there, brother. Go ahead.
Thank you. Aside from the obvious answer of Darwin, where does the idea of evolution come from? Is there anything that goes back further?
If you go to part 4A, I think it's 4A, and then there'll be the word evolution. If you kids go to public school or public college, or you're going to get into an email debate or a debate online about evolution, I've learned how to win the debate in the first 5 minutes. Okay, it's so simple. You have to define exactly what you're talking about. This is all you need to do, and the debate's over. You win. If someone says, do you believe in evolution? I say, what do you mean? Can you get 4A up there? Coming? Okay. No 4A? Okay. That's 3A. 4A. That's still part 3 up there. As soon as you say, what do you mean by the word evolution, and you define the word, the argument is over. Let's see, that's 7. That's still 7. Shut that down.
As they're looking for 4A, could you answer, you started speaking on it. There's a question later on that asks how many debates you've participated in and if you've won every single one.
As far as formal debates at a university, about 100. As far as debates, including those I've done online, 120 maybe. Yeah, in the university setting where I go and I have a formal debate, close to 100. I think everybody that watches them says I won every one. It's not that I'm smarter, it's that I'm right and they're wrong. Okay, let's see, variations. Click on just the word Darwin. Okay, let me see if this is it here. I give the 6 different meanings of the word evolution. Variations within the kind. Okay. Here we go. The word evolution, if you're going to get into a debate, be sure you define what you're talking about. Here's the problem. If you don't do what I'm about to tell you, you will lose the debate. If you do what I'm about to tell you, you will win the debate. It's so simple. The first meaning of the word evolution would be cosmic evolution. That is the origin of time, space, matter. Where did time, space, and matter come from? Secondly, you have what's called chemical evolution. If the Big Bang Theory were true, and it's not, but if it was, the Big Bang would produce hydrogen. Now you've got to get from hydrogen to all these other elements. How on earth do you get 92 elements out of hydrogen? Can you make gold and silver and platinum out of hydrogen gas? If so, I'd like to see how that's done. I could get rich. Thirdly, you have to have what's called stellar evolution. The stars have to evolve. No one's ever seen a star form. All we do is see stars blow up once in a while, called a nova or a supernova. Number 4, let's see, you have to have what's called organic evolution. This is the origin of life. How did life get started from non-living material? They don't want to talk about any of these first 4. So when they say the word evolution, they're deceiving you. Number 5, you have what's called macroevolution, where an animal changes into a different kind, and I use the word kind, of animal. Number 6, you have what's called microevolution. Now this one happens. Variations within the same kind. There are 5 different varieties of giraffes in the world. You wouldn't realize that till you stand them side by side and look and say, wow, they've got a different spot pattern. Okay, there are 5 different giraffes. They probably had a common ancestor. It was called a giraffe. There are 8 kinds of bears in the world, and they might have had a common ancestor called a bear. So what they're going to do, they're going to fool you by the definition of the word. The first 5 meanings are purely religious. Nobody's ever seen any of those happen. None. Number 6, we see that all the time. So when you're talking to an atheist or an evolutionist and you say the word evolution, he is thinking of number 6. And there are millions of good examples of it happening. And he does not understand how you can't see it. But you are thinking of number 5 or 4 or 3 or 2, and you don't understand how he does see it. So define the word. Which one are we talking about? Evolution. This guy says it's a change over time. First definition. That's not really what they mean. Then they say living things have changed over time. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You're going to skip down to living things? You're going to skip over the first 4 meanings of evolution? Cosmic, chemical, stellar? They'd like to skip over that. Okay? They don't want to talk about those because they don't have any answer for them. Students are given the definition of the word, but it's only microevolution, like this textbook. Evolution is a change in species over time. I believe in that. Change in species. See, the Bible doesn't mention the word species. The Bible says they bring forth after their kind. This is all on video number 4, lies in the textbooks. Let's see. Variations happen, but they have limits. Farmers have been trying to get bigger pigs for a long time. They crossbreed their pigs, trying to get the biggest pigs they can. Okay? Do you think they'll ever get a pig as big as Texas? No, there's a limit in there someplace. Roaches become resistant to pesticides after a while, but they're still a roach, and they will never become resistant to a sledgehammer. There's a limit to the resistance, okay? These are 3 tiger cubs from the same mother, and they probably had a common ancestor, a tiger. They're still the same kind. Video 4, I cover that. The dogs, for instance, we go from a Great Dane to a Chihuahua. They're still a dog. Still the dog kind. And Chihuahuas cannot produce Great Danes, and he's probably thinking, let's see, how long would the Chihuahuas last in the real world? Yeah, right. Go ahead, make my day. Here goes. There are who knows how many kinds of corn. Gee whiz, hundreds of varieties of corn. I grew up in Illinois, corn country. They got them all numbered. Here's corn XL7252. Don't mix it up with 9562. Something will blow up, you know. But there's 400 varieties of dogs in the world, and they probably had a common ancestor, a dog. So what they're going to do, they're going to fool you with the meaning of the word evolution. Like this textbook shows the kids a dog, the different kinds of dogs coming from a wolf. And they'll say that's divergent evolution. Oh, come on, don't give it a fancy name. It's still in the dog kind. 10 times in Genesis 1, and 10 more times in the flood story, Genesis 6 and 7, it talks about the animals bringing forth after their kind. Don't get trapped into that species argument. On the opposite sides of Grand Canyon, there are 2 different varieties of squirrel. The Kaibab squirrel and the, what's the other one? A Burt squirrel. They might have had a common ancestor, a squirrel. That's not evolution. That's variations within the same kind. That's all it is, okay?
So Darwin, did he have any influence before him?
I didn't hear you. What?
Darwin, was it completely his idea of evolution, or was he influenced? Was
Darwin's grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, really kind of started the evolution idea. It's been around for centuries. It came really from the Greeks back before Christ, you know, the idea that variations happen. Yeah. But then you got to ask yourself, do these variations have any kind of limit? The Christian says, well, yeah, they've got a limit. They're the same kind. The horse and the zebra might have had a common ancestor. I don't know. But it looked like a horse, you know, 4-wheel drive, leather upholstery. I mean, it's horse, you know. That wouldn't prove that horse and banana are related. So Darwin really kind of took the idea at a time in history when people were hoping to get rid of God, telling them what to do. It's not advancing here, fellas. I can't get it. There we go. We had one of the world's smallest horses come visit our Dinosaur Adventureland, 17 inches tall. My granddaughter, she's firstborn, trying to ride the thing. Yeah, horses have there's variations, but they're limited. I think there are, well, you can crossbreed a horse and a zebra and you get a zorse. If it's a zebra with a mare, it's called a zonkey. Pony and zebra is called a zeoni. You can get a z-donk, a zebras, a shebra. Okay, it still looks like a horse. I mean, that's the whole point, is they're going to confuse you with the arguments. And Darwin noticed these varieties and said, I think it goes infinitely forever, that the horse and the banana are related. And that's where he went stark raving stupid, in my humble, totally unbiased opinion.
Thank you.
Okay?
All right, and then we have a question that says, does radiometric dating work at all? And if it does, is it only accurate for a few thousand years?
Radioactive dating was started after World War II, when we dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and realized, whoa, we just created some radioactive elements here. Radiation, okay? So they started in 1947, right after World War II. If you click the one that says carbon dating, I think, there it is, first column, okay. This guy said radiometric dating would not have been feasible if the geologic column had not been erected first. Back in 1830, they made up the idea of the layers of the Earth being different ages, and then the dates became established in people's minds, and 100 years later, they invent the radioactive dating. So radioactive dating is not used to date fossils. It's geologic column that's still used to date fossils. This guy says, I can think of no cases of radioactive decay being used to date fossils. They date fossils by the geologic column. So don't let them tell you, we know that bone is 80 million years old because of carbon dating. Here's the way it works. Let's take a minute on this answer. But the Earth's atmosphere today is about 100 miles thick, okay? And it contains mostly nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 0.06% carbon dioxide, and 0.0000765% radioactive carbon-14. The carbon-14 that mixes with oxygen and becomes carbon dioxide, and the plants breathe in carbon dioxide. The sunlight produces radioactive carbon-14 by cosmic rays bombarding the atmosphere, and they combine with nitrogen. They knock a few things off the nitrogen and turn it into carbon-14. Who cares? Anyway, about 21 pounds of new carbon-14 is being produced every year in the whole world. 21 pounds divided over the whole world, so not much. Carbon and nitrogen are right next to each other on the periodic table, and so when the nitrogen gets bombarded into carbon, it becomes what they call radioactive. It does not want to be carbon-14. It wants to change back. So I cover on video 7 a 20-minute answer to your question. Carbon dating does not ever work, I don't think. I'll give you a few examples here. How it's supposed to work and the problems with it. Let's see. Radiocarbon is still forming faster than it's decaying, which means you'd have to know when the animal lived so that you could determine when it lived. Which you would. I mean, it is circular reasoning. I give some examples of how the problem is. The lower leg of a mammoth was 15,000 years old, but the skin was 21,000. That's back in 1949 when they first invented it, so maybe it didn't work very good. Let's go up a little earlier here. 1963, living mollusk shells were carbon dated at 2,300 years old. They're still alive. How can you say they're 2,300 years old? Well, it's getting better. 1970, they said if carbon date supports our theories, we put it in the main text. If it doesn't entirely contradict them, we put it in a footnote. If it's completely out of date, we drop it. Living, freshly killed seal, carbon dated at 1,300 years old. They just killed it. So I go through on my video number 7 some of the problems. Here's living snails, carbon date 27,000 years old. They're still alive. So I don't know anybody who trusts carbon dating that understands how it works and would say it's anything reasonable. Watch my video 7 for a whole lot more on that one, okay?
Let's talk specifically about water flood and post-flood questions.
I cannot understand what you're saying.
Let's talk about water flood and post-flood questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, were sedimentary rocks created during the flood or in creation?
I think the Bible says when God first created the world, it was underwater. And then he said, let the dry land appear in day 3. So there may have been some sedimentation, just normal part of the creation. So I don't know that this is true, but I suspect some sedimentary rock is from the creation, the way it was created, with the earth being underwater and then the dry land appearing. That, I would think, would cause some washing away. But I think most of what we see that's called sedimentary rock was formed during the flood in the days of Noah. Okay?
All right, and then we have when it says, when we read Genesis chapter 1, we read that God separated the water from the firmament. And so the question is, what is that firmament?
Well, I covered that in the last session here. The firmament is almost certainly where the birds fly. That's the atmosphere. And he said there was water above the firmament. So that I take to be the canopy of crystalline water, probably ice. See, super cold ice is magnetic. It could be 10 miles up, and if you go up right now 10 miles over your head, it's 90 below zero right now, just 10 miles up. You get in the airplane, somebody flown across the ocean, and they got the little TV screen in front of you, it tells you outside temperature. They get 100 below zero at 39,000 feet, which is only 7 miles. So extremely cold, just 10 miles. Over the Sahara Desert, it's 10 miles. So I think the whole Earth was surrounded by a crystalline canopy of ice, increased air pressure, filtered out sunlight, and it wouldn't melt. Because an Eskimo can build a house out of snow, go inside and build a fire, and it won't melt his roof. Because the outside is so cold, it keeps drawing the heat away before it can reach the melting point. So it's called the igloo effect. Who cares? But I think the original creation was that way. The sun would shine through the canopy, heat up the earth, and any extra heat would be dissipated back through the canopy. Not a problem. It wouldn't melt it. So did I go off track on your question? I don't see where that was on here, but... Okay, so the firmament, in question number 4, it would be the atmosphere. It says so where the birds fly. Okay?
Number 6. Since there was water under the crust, was that why water had come out of the rock when Moses hit his staff?
When Moses hit the rock with his staff and brought the water out, well, you can drill pretty near anywhere in the world and get a well. I mean, you can drill right here and find water if you go down far enough, I'm sure. So there's still a lot of water, but that's mostly groundwater in the space between the rock and sand, as opposed to real big pockets of water that are trapped. Though there are some huge pockets of water trapped in the crust. There are a lot of underground pools of water, huge ones. How Moses got it from there, I don't know. Bible says first time God said, smite the rock, and water came out. Later, God said, speak to the rock. But Moses hit it instead. And water came out, but Moses did not get to go into the promised land because of that mistake. See, Jesus is that rock is Jesus, a symbol, and he only needs to be smitten once on the cross. He won't be smitten again. Okay?
All right, and the next question, it says, how did animals cross the ocean after the flood? And then it revolves around the explanation of the theory of Pangea.
Right. Pangea, I think, is on here. Pangea, is it number 2, second page? How did the animals get to Australia, I think is the way I phrased it on here. Maybe it's here. And not on that one. Tell you what, go to, shut this one down and go to part 6, seminar 6. It's interesting, if you look at the shapes of the continents, I think it is part 6. Pangea, kangaroos in Australia, bottom right, click on that one. How did the kangaroos get to Australia? Let's see. On my seminar 6, I cover this for a long time, but if you lowered the oceans just a few hundred feet, you notice England and Ireland, they're islands today, but the water between England and France is only 150 feet deep. That's the deepest part of the English Channel, from here to the back door. That's it. So it's 30 miles wide, but only 150 feet deep. So if you lowered the oceans 150 feet, Norway, Norway, Denmark, all of this would be the beach way out here. England and Ireland would not be islands. You can see it from a satellite view. I mean, look, that's pretty shallow. From the satellite, they can see down to the bottom of the ocean along here. So all of this is relatively shallow ground. It's called what's called the continental shelf, okay? If you lowered the oceans just 60 feet, and they average 12,000 feet deep, so out of 12,000 feet of water, take out 60. Near nothing. Russia and Alaska are connected because all this water in here is only 60 feet deep, roughly. If you lowered the oceans 100 feet, the land bridge between Alaska and Russia would be 10,000 miles wide. If you raise the oceans just 10%, this is what it would look like. Everything just with a 10% deeper ocean, we wouldn't have anything in eastern America. It'd only be the Appalachian Mountains. If you lowered the oceans just a few hundred feet, Florida would be connected to Cuba, and the Gulf of Mexico would be real tiny. So all around the continents, you have what's called a continental shelf. Okay. Mobile, Pensacola Bay, 7 feet deep, which is almost nothing, you know. If you lowered the oceans a little bit, you could walk from Vietnam to Australia. I think right after the flood, the ice caps were much larger coming down to Kansas City, Missouri, and it would trap all that extra water in the form of ice, and if you have larger ice caps, you have smaller oceans because the water's trapped in the form of ice. That would take a few hundred years to melt. As it melted back to where it is today, as the ice, nobody questions there was an ice age. But when does it fit? Well, in the Bible, I think it comes during and right after the flood. So for the first few hundred years, they could actually walk any place in the world. It was all connected. Kangaroos, and they ended up in Australia because they're less aggressive, and so rather than fight for their territory for the tiger, they move and give it up to the tiger. And so they ended up protected. As the migration wave took off from Mount Ararat, they would be pushed away over a few hundred years, generation after generation. They ended up stuck in Australia, and the rising water protected them, isolated them. So a continental shelf is the shallow part around all the continents. Let's see. So the question was about kangaroos? Oh, animals. As far as Pangea, I'll tell you what, hit number 1, guys, back to the home slide. Just 1 and enter should do it. Pangea, the fourth one down on the left, okay? Here's some things they don't tell you about Pangea that I think they should. They'll say all the continents used to fit together. This is typical textbook propaganda. South America and Africa seem to be a perfect fit. Oh yeah? What they don't tell you was, they will tell you the shapes seem to fit, and there are similar fossils found on opposite sides. Okay, I agree. Well, those same similar fossils are found all over the world. Not just on opposite sides, they're found everywhere. Secondly, they don't tell you Africa was shrunk 35 to 40% to make them fit. Mexico and Central America are gone. Donde está Mexico? Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras. They took them out. Africa is 11.6 million square miles. South America is 6.9 million. Don't they look about the same size on that drawing? They shrank Africa 40% to make it look like they'll fit. They twisted one way and 2 the other way. And they don't tell you what I think ought to be obvious to a kindergartner. If you take the water out of the oceans, there is dirt underneath. People say, Hovind, do you think the continents were ever connected? I say, what do you mean? They're still connected right now. Aren't they? It's just the low places are full of water, that's all. What do you mean, were they connected? Hello, they're still connected. You guys are connected to China right now. Only there's a big ocean in between. But there's dirt under that water, like, duh. How can they be that dumb? I think you'd have to have help to be that dumb. You couldn't possibly do it on your own. You had to go to school for years. Okay, so I cover Pangea on video number 6. I knew it was in there somewhere. Go ahead.
What made things, living things, plants, animals, humans, bigger and live longer before the flood?
I think humans, plants, animals, everything was probably much bigger before the flood. So much so, that oftentimes if you find bones in the dirt, they would not even be recognized for what they are because it's already in these guys' heads. Man started off like a chimpanzee, and we're getting bigger, better, stronger, smarter. So if you found the bones of an 18-foot human, they would never dream it's a human. They would give it something else, like a giant sloth or something. It couldn't be a human because of their theory. So I think that what I covered on video number 2, or DVD number 2, I still call them videos. I was locked up for 9 years. I can't believe all the technology changes. And they brought the outhouse into the building, put the flush thing on there. I like that. No more corn cob. That's good. Anyway, I like all those changes. But the DVD number 2 talks about the original creation. What was it like? I think most things were much larger. Fossil grasshoppers have been found 2 feet long. Fossils of grasshoppers. How do you explain that? Especially when you see an animal that breathes through its skin like a grasshopper or any insects. All insects breathe through their skin. They have a real problem. As they get larger, their surface area to volume ratio drops off. And we covered that on video number 2. There's a limit on how big insects can get where they simply can't get enough air anymore. They don't have enough skin to support their body mass. Watch DVD number 2 for more on that, okay?
All right, and then we have this one question. It's question number 9 on the paper. It's kind of phrased a little strange, but what do you think about those skulls, those fossils that were found? They give them names like Ardipithecus and all these kind of the really big skulls and whatnot.
They find what they call the cavemen, the so-called cavemen. On 2B, I cover that. DVD number 2, part B, the second half. What about the cavemen? Let's click on that first one there, okay? We teach the kids, this is Grandpa. So what about the cavemen? Can an ape-like creature turn to a human? Well, it's obviously Bill Clinton's an example, but many people in the Bible lived in caves, so you have to define what do you mean by caveman, okay? He was the world's most wanted caveman for a while. Lived in a cave. By the way, they figured out how to tell when the terrorists reach puberty. They put their diaper on their head. That was one of the world's most famous cavemen. So Nebraska man was used as evidence for evolution for a long time. All they really found for Nebraska man was one tooth. One tooth. There is Nebraska man. They built the entire creature from one tooth. Later, they found out the tooth actually came from a pig. All of it built up from, and his wife. They made his wife out of one tooth. They knew what he looked like and his wife. These guys are really good. I mean, how do you tell what his wife looks like from his tooth? Gee whiz. Anyway, there's the real Nebraska man right there. But Piltdown man was one found in Piltdown, England, which is how it got its name. In 1912, it was a big article in the New York Times. Darwin's theory proved true. Because of the Piltdown man, it was used as evidence in the Scopes monkey trial, 1925. It was later proven to be fraudulent. Piltdown man was a hoax. Someone took a jawbone, dyed it to make it look old, and filed the teeth down to make it look half human, half ape. It was a complete fraud. Neanderthal man is, I think, still used in textbooks many times. Joachim Neander lived in Germany. He wrote the song, Praise to the Lord, the Almighty, the King of Creation. He walked in this valley in the 1700s, and when he died, they named the valley after him, Neander Valley. Who cares? Well, later, while they're digging away limestone to use for some buildings in Germany someplace, they're quarrying the limestone, they found a skeleton of a man in the rock, solid rock. The guy had petrified, turned to stone, probably from the flood. The guy was 5'7", I think, and his back was bent over. And they said, oh, this is an old man who had arthritis. Now, he was found in 1856. The bones were found. It was classified as 100% human. Today, there are 300 Neanderthals that have been found in that region, France, Germany, Italy, etc. Okay? But when they couldn't find any evidence for evolution, they reclassified Neanderthal as a missing link. They said, his back is bent over. Monkeys walk on 4 legs, man walks on 2, and they said, he's slowly coming up. No, he's got arthritis. He's slowly going down. Okay? Not coming up. But they find these Neanderthals all over the place. About 300 of them have been found. They find them buried with beads and flowers and arrowheads. I mean, these were normal humans. Can you name any animal that buries its dead? Or that buries them with any artifacts? Can you name any animal that does that? No. They said it had a sloped forehead, bigger eyebrow ridges, longer occipital bun. The back of the head is called your occipital bun. Who cares? Well, yeah, that's proof of evolution? Because it's got a sloped forehead? I don't think so. Let's see. Before the flood, people lived to be 900. After the flood, they lived to be 400. Okay? When you chew on food, the masseter muscle pulls on your cheekbone and your jawbone, but also transfers some of the pulling through the temporalis muscle and the frontalis muscle to the eyebrow ridge. Your eyebrow ridge is a connection point for some of your facial muscles. Who cares? Well, it is important because the more you use a muscle pulling on the bone, the bigger the bone grows in response. A weightlifter will not only get bigger muscles, he will slowly get bigger bones, denser bone structure. Okay. Well, if a person is living to be 400 years old, just chewing his food is going to make a larger eyebrow ridge. Larger brow ridge is found in any culture that has a tougher, coarser diet. They always get a bigger brow ridge just because of chewing. That's an aboriginal skull. This guy said, yeah, he said, Brother Hovind, I'm a Neanderthal. See, look at me. I got hair and everything. Okay. But he loves my videotapes, loves dinosaurs. Okay. Plus the back of the head, every time you bend down and lift your head up, the muscles on the back of your neck and shoulders have to pull your head back up. That's gradually going to elongate your skull. And of course, you're going to get a larger occipital bun just by fact of living to be 200 or 300 years old. So all of the so-called cavemen are covered in this, well, some of them in this book, Buried Alive, which is excellent. They call him the missing link. He's still alive. He's not missing. But I cover all this in video number 2 about all the so-called cavemen. They've either been hoaxes, frauds, misidentified, fully human, or fully ape. Okay?
So this question is in regards to climate change, or in other words, global warming. What do you believe is the authenticity of global warming? And because it's such a controversial matter, we kind of hear about it a lot on the news and the media and whatnot, is it connected to the end times?
Okay, global warming, global means the earth, the whole globe. Is it warming up? The Bible says the earth is the Lord's, it belongs to Him. God has dominion over everything. Karl Marx, the founder of communism, had 10 ways to take over a country, 10 things you have to do. Number 1, you have to abolish private property. That was essential. Communist rules, Communist Manifesto, number 1, okay? Abolish private property. So, in the Bible, private property ownership is essential to liberty. If you were a dud and you lost everything, every 50 years, your family would get it back, called the year of Jubilee. So God had a system where if your dad or grandpa was not a good businessman and lost it all, you're still going to get your inheritance back in the year of Jubilee. Return to his possession. Private property ownership. His vine, his fig tree, private property ownership. Drink waters out of your own cistern. Okay? Peter Burrell, National Audubon Society, said we reject the idea of private property. That's because he's a communist, okay? Wants there to be, here's a pledge kids say in Massachusetts. I pledge allegiance to the earth instead of to the flag. Anyway. There's a long story on video number 7 about this. Anyway, back to the global warming. I think it all ties in really to a part of the communist goal to rule the world, abolish private property. They want you to think that man is hurting the environment, and therefore we have to have more government regulations on your private life. The exact opposite is true. I take care of my yard. I change oil in my car because I don't want to blow up the motor. Suppose, they talk about we should have national health care. That is so stupid. Why don't we have national auto care? If you ever tear up your car, the government buys you a new one. How would you drive? Why don't we have national house care? National utility care. We'll pay your utility bills. Would you worry about shutting the refrigerator door and, having the AC running while the doors are open? How many of you have ever got yelled at for leaving the door open because the AC was on or the heat was on? Well, yeah, because somebody's paying the bill, right? Sure. Well, so healthcare is the same thing. 70% of all healthcare costs today are from problems that are self-induced. They did it to themselves. If you want to smoke cigarettes, that is totally your business. You want me to pay for it when you get sick? Now that's my business. You want to drink alcohol? Fine, go drink it. You want me to pay when you get sick? No. Now we're talking. So if I became president, and I'm not running for the job, I would abolish most of the laws that we have, stop all this stupid healthcare stuff. It's not the government's job. But I would also have to shut down all welfare at the federal level. Let the local churches do that. So the question about global warming, first, I don't think there's any evidence of global warming. I don't think there is. If there is, that wouldn't prove man is doing it. It could be something, a natural cycle of the solar sunspot cycle or something. If man is doing it, the last one capable of fixing the problem would be the government. Can you show me anything they have fixed? Anything. They're good at building highways, and that's about it. Even that's awful expensive, the way they build them. So no, I do not believe it's a problem. And if there were a problem, if it could be proven there's a problem, I don't think the government should get involved in it. The Constitution is very clear, 10th Amendment. They would have no business, the federal government have no business being involved in that. Okay?
We have a few questions, follow-up questions from earlier things that you said. So one of the things that you earlier said was that understanding the text without a plain reading of the scripture is grounds for a cult. Do you agree with that?
I just can't understand what you're saying. What now?
Okay, so a few questions here. So you earlier said understanding the text without a plain reading of the scripture is grounds for a cult. So based on that, why is this an okay stance for you to take against those who disagree? But it doesn't apply to you because a lot of the things you say, you infer from the reading.
That's a fair question. When I quote from a scripture that talks about a particular topic, usually there's 2 or 3 verses on that topic. The Bible says, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. And even that phrase, 2 or 3 witnesses, appears 3 times in the Bible. I gave 3 references where the Bible talks about water under the crust of the earth. Okay, the Bible gives 3 references. That's pretty clear. 3 times the Bible says there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. Okay, with those 3 witnesses, 3 verses, Isaiah 65, 2 Peter 3, and Revelation 21, I think I could safely claim that the Bible teaches there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. Now, if the Bible only has 1 verse on a topic, I'm a little more cautious in those cases because it is easy to develop a cult from taking a verse here and a verse there and making the Bible say something it really doesn't say. So the question is kind of generic. I need a specific, I guess. What specifically have I done or said when I didn't clearly say, this is my theory on this, or the Bible's not clear, but this is what I believe? The Bible has 31,101 verses, and most of them are pretty clear. Some of them are just not too clear, to me anyway. I just don't understand what some of them say. So accusing someone of being in a cult without giving a specific, I think that's unfair. I'd like to see the specific thing. They think I'm teaching this wrong.
So a few questions that apply to that. So the first one is, how does a plain reading of the scripture handle the different words for love in the restoration of Peter in John 21? So there's agape versus phileo. Jesus asks, do you agape me multiple times? Peter answers, I phileo you. Then Jesus finally asks, do you phileo me? In English, it's all written as love. So how do you handle that?
The English language is more limited in some areas and more expansive in some areas. The Greek language has six, I don't understand Greek, but I have heard that there are 6 different meanings, 6 different words for love. I love my dog. I love pizza. I love my wife. Well, those are different kinds of love, okay, obviously. And most of them can be distinguished by the context in English. We know when I say I love my dog, I'm not saying the same thing as I say when I love pizza. Because my intention is to eat the pizza, it is not to eat the dog, okay? So it is different kinds of love, and I think most of them are generally understood by what's called the context. Now, I have heard the Greek language is more expressive with having different words. By the same token, in English, we have different words where the Greek would only have one word for anything that comes from the juice of the grape. Grape juice, grape jelly, grape syrup, alcoholic wine, all comes from one word. And you would know the context by Proverbs. He said, don't drink the wine when it gets fermented. Well, that would mean there's a time when it's not fermented. So in the Greek language, it would still be called wine, but it's not fermented. So we would have a different word. We'd call it grape juice and grape jelly and wine, 3 different words where they would only have one. So this happens occasionally with languages. I can't think of any other examples, but I'm sure there are some where in the language barrier, some languages are more expressive in some things than others. And you folks that speak Russian, you know that sometimes it's just hard to translate some things. There just isn't a word for that. For instance, in English, a father-in-law and another father-in-law, their children are married to each other. There is no word for the relationship between the 2 fathers-in-law. But there is in Russian, isn't there? Let's see, what's the word for father-in-law relationship? Yeah, see, we don't have a word for that in English. You got babushka, is grandparent, grandmother, grandfather, whatever. So we don't have that. So every language has those little barriers. It's usually not a big deal. So as far as in John chapter 21, Jesus said to Peter, do you love me? He said, yes, I love you. We know from the context that Peter's not saying the same thing. In the Greek language, it was more expressive. Jesus said, do you agape? Do you really love me like God? He says, I love you like a brother. And so that's the question is, I think if I understand it, is correct, that there is a difference there. Okay?
There were 3 scriptural references given to me here. All 3 of them say that the earth shall be stable. So 1 Chronicles 16:30 says, fear before him all the earth, the world shall be stable, that it be not moved. Psalm 93:1, the world also is established, that it cannot be moved. Psalm 96:10, the world also shall be established, that it is not moved. How do you handle those verses and some of the things that you were saying about the earth moving?
Well, yeah, this gets into the geocentric theory and the flat earth theory and all that stuff, which I think is ridiculous for multiple reasons, scriptural and otherwise. But if it says the earth cannot be moved, you can see an example, a semi going down the highway and a Volkswagen passes him. The semi is not moved, the Volkswagen is. The earth is more massive and would be less affected by things.
So I think in this case, what the question is more about is if we take the plain reading of the scripture, then it would have to literally mean the earth is not moving, but we know the earth moves.
Well, the allegorical reading or the plain reading, the Bible says God gathers Israel under his wings. Does that mean he's a chicken? Does he have wings? Or is this just an obvious, what's called there's allegories, there's similes. In English, there's all kinds of different expressions that are used. I could say I'm hungry as a horse. Well, am I really hungry as a horse, or does that just mean I'm really hungry? So I think the Bible says God shakes the earth, so it does move. Plus, I think the other thing you need to look at, if I'm headed north on what's this highway here? 5? Highway 5? Oh, okay. I'm headed north on I-5 up to Seattle. You're in the back seat, and you say, Brother Hovind, would you pass me a Coca-Cola? We're going 70 miles an hour. If I'm driving, we're going 80 miles an hour. Okay. We're going north at 70 miles an hour. I hand you a Coke back to the back seat, and I'm moving my hand at 10 miles an hour. Question, did the Coke go forward or backward? Well, that depends. Relative to us in the car, the Coke went backwards. Relative to anybody out on the sidewalk, the Coke went forward. At 60 miles an hour, the Coke went forward. Right? So when Joshua says, "Sun, stand thou still," the sun stood still relative to all of the observers, which are the people on earth. Now, if somebody would have been outside the earth looking at it, they would see the earth stop turning and it would have the effect of the sun standing still. But there are no people outside of the earth looking at it. There are no outside observers, so you would not even consider that. As far as everybody's concerned, the sun stood still. This is where all the observers are. Eve is the mother of all living. There's nobody on the moon watching this happen, or Jupiter, or planet, or star, or Saturn. So, of course you'd say, "Sun, stand thou still." The weatherman today talked about sunrise and sunset. That is exactly the correct way to say it if we're the only observers. Now, technically, if the sun, it's us turning, causing this effect of the sun coming up and going down. But they try to use those verses, I think, totally misuse them to try to teach the idea of a geocentric theory or the flat earth theory. And I know where it's going. I've been through this a million times. So, yes, it is perfectly correct to say sun stands still and the earth doesn't move. Even though it is turning and going around the sun, I'm standing. Does anybody feel it moving right now? Does it feel like it's moving? No. You can be in a car going 80 miles an hour and it doesn't feel like it's moving. If it changes velocity, then you feel that, speeding up or slowing down. But otherwise, you don't feel it. And one guy said, "Well, man, if the earth is turning at 1,000 miles an hour and God said, 'Sun, stand thou still,' and the earth stopped turning, the oceans would slosh up out of the basins and drown everything." Well, yeah, if you stopped it instantly. Last night I was going 550 miles an hour as I flew in here from Houston, Texas. The plane went from 550 to 0. When I got off the plane, it wasn't moving at all. How could it go from 550 miles an hour to 0? Well, you just don't do it instantly. You take a few minutes to slow down, right? And it didn't kill anybody in the plane. So the earth could slow down from 1,000 miles an hour to 0 if God just slowed it down and then stopped it. The oceans don't have to slosh out of their basins. Or if he's able to slow the earth down, he's able to keep everything in place too. I don't think there's a problem. It could, obviously the whole thing was miraculous. But yes, the verses about the earth not moving, I think would be relative to us humans standing here. It's not moving.
Okay, one last question on those kind. According to 2 Peter 3:8, God is not subject to a time constraint. So based on that, do you have to literally say that God literally created in 6 days? Couldn't that have been 6 million, thousand?
God is not subjected to time, I agree. He is outside of time, space, and matter. He made those for us. Time is what keeps everything from happening all at once. It's a wonderful thing. I'm glad everything doesn't happen all at the same time. But we are stuck in time, not God. I don't think there's any way the human brain can understand this, but there's illustrations that help us try to wrap around some of the edges of it a little bit. If you get in a raft and you're going to go down through Grand Canyon, so you sit in your raft and you're going through the canyon, which twists back and forth. Okay. An hour later, somebody else gets in the raft and another raft, and they're going down through the canyon. Because of the twists and turns of the river, they cannot see each other. That river is like time. Every day, new babies are born. Every day, they start their journey through this 70 or 80 years of life. Every day. And a bunch of them are born. And they're going through this river. Some are near the end of their journey. They're 90 years old. Some are just starting. They just got born this week. Okay? But they're going through this river of time. We are stuck in 2016, and there's not a thing you can do about it. There have been many times I wished I could go back in time, even just a few seconds. How many have ever had one of those moments where you say, "Oops, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I could just go back just a few seconds. Let's undo what I just did. That was dumb. Okay. Don't push that button. Oh. Anyway, so we're stuck in time. Nothing you can do about it. However, God is not. While we're going through this river, suppose there's a guy in a helicopter way up high overhead. He can look down and see everybody in the river at the same time. He can see the people from 2016, and he can see the people from 2010, 6 years ago. And he can see what's happening in 2018. He sees it all at the same time. Now, I can't comprehend that. I can try to explain it. But God is not stuck in this river like, this is not 2016 in heaven. There is no time there. Which means God already knows the future. That does not mean God is controlling it. We have control. He has knowledge. Here's an illustration that helps. I use in my book, What on Earth is About to Happen. If I watch a football game, which I never do, I think it's stupid, but I watch a football game and I videotape it, okay? The last 3 seconds, the guy throws the bomb, the Hail Mary pass. If he catches it, they win. If he misses it, they lose. You call me up and, hey, Brother Hovind, who won the game? I say, I'm not telling you. Come on over. I taped it. I recorded it. Let's watch. We sit down. I hit play, and the game is going on. And we're both sitting on the couch watching this game. The last 3 seconds, the guy throws the bomb. I hit pause. Ball's hanging in the air. The guy on the ground's got his tongue hanging out, hoping to catch the ball. Okay. We right now have 3 different positions. I know what's going to happen, but I don't control it. I just know. I've already seen it. The guys on the ground have control, but they don't have knowledge. At that moment, they don't know if he's going to catch it or not, but they do have control. They have control but no knowledge. I have knowledge but no control. You sitting next to me are saying, I don't have knowledge or control. Push the button. I want to see if he catches it or not. Okay. And I'm not going to tell you because I don't know. It doesn't matter. Okay. So God can know the future without controlling the future. He knows every decision you're going to make. He would like you to make the right ones, but you don't have to. Now let's get back in Grand Canyon. You're in a raft going down Grand Canyon, and you look ahead, and you see it's real smooth water on half the river. The other half is getting pretty rocky. And you've got a walkie-talkie to talk to the guy in the helicopter. This is prayer. We can talk to God who knows the future and get his advice. So you talk to the guy up there in the helicopter and say, hey, should I stay to the right or stay to the left? He says, stay to the right. You say, it's real rocky. It looks like rapids on the right, and on the left it looks real smooth. You sure you want me to stay to the right? He says, yes, stay to the right. You say, but hey, it's real smooth on the left. He says, yes, it's always real smooth right before the waterfall. Stay to the right, okay? Do you want to go through the rapids or go over the falls? That's your choice. We sometimes ask God, what would you like me to do? And he tells us, and then we don't do it anyway. Okay, well, you're in charge. You're driving the raft. You can go over the waterfall if you want, but you'd be smarter to take the rapids. Okay. That's the best illustration I can come up with for time. We are stuck in time. God is not. Not at all affected by it. Okay?
All right, and then from there we're moving on to the section called random. It was just any question that was asked that kind of didn't fit in any other category. And the first one has to do with yoga. It says, is yoga right or wrong, and to what extent?
Yoga, I think most people that do yoga are just simply stretching and, getting in shape, okay? Some people use it maybe as a religion, I don't know. It does keep you more limber. My brother is a contortionist, and he married a fortune teller, and their child can foresee his own end. That's limber. No, I don't know of anything wrong with it, unless you want to take it into the religious aspect of, worshiping some Mother Earth or something. But and when I was in the prison for almost 9 years, they had videotapes of people doing yoga, stretches, and all this stuff, and I did it with them for months and never saw anything other than stretches. I thought it was great. Okay?
Okay, questions 4, 6, and 7. They're all on the same topic, asking, what do we do in school? We're taught evolution, We have to write certain things about evolution. If we don't write, we might get a bad grade. So what do we do?
Like I said earlier, I would define the word. What do you mean by evolution? Define it very carefully. And then you could say, you could say the textbook says, blah, 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 spit up the answer they want you to give, and then say, however, this is not correct, and I don't believe any of this. If the teacher lowers your grade for that, you got a lawsuit coming. You can handle it. You'd win big money on that. If they discriminate against you for your religious beliefs, nail them to the tree. Okay? 5, is it wrong to wear earrings? I don't see anything wrong with it. Some do. Some make a big deal out of it. Same thing. Is it wrong to wear makeup? Every old barn needs a coat of paint once in a while. To me, that's just not an issue. To some people, they make their whole church out of it. Okay, I think it's a secondary issue in my way of thinking. So I don't see any problem with it.
All right, and then just skipping to question 8. It says some Christians think they can receive the RFID chip and remove it later. And the Bible mentions that whoever's name is not written in the book of life will receive the mark of the beast. And is this mark or is this chip removable?
Okay, I think I have stuff on the mark of the beast on here. Yes, first column near the bottom. If you click on that, okay. RFID is radio frequency identification chips. This is becoming extremely common. I mean, a lot of credit cards have them in there. You can get your smartphone has it in there. It says in Revelation 13, he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. And this is on my DVD number 7 of my series. Back in the early 90s, they developed a little tiny microchip the size of a grain of rice. And they started putting it into pets and stuff like that as identification. You can spend $30 and the vet will microchip your pet. A lot of farmers put it in the ear of their cow or something like that. They can actually, now with satellite, they can go over the field and count how many cows are in the field by satellite because of these little chips. It's amazing, the technology, what's happened in the last 25 years. Carl Sanders from Mountain View, Arkansas, there's his phone number. I think I don't know if he's still alive. I haven't tried to talk to him since I got out of prison. But his company was largely responsible for developing this little microchip. He told me that the government came to him and said, we want your company to develop a chip the size of a grain of rice that we can put in the muscles of a paralyzed person and connect it to a keyboard, and the paralyzed person will get movement from electronic stimulation. Oh. Well, it was a great success for microsizing the chip, but it was a failure to getting paralyzed people to walk. Anyway, he told me that they also did a $1 million grant to say what part of the human body changes temperature the most, because if we put this little chip and have a battery with it, a lithium battery at one end, temperature change will charge the battery. So let's find out what part of the human body changes temperature the most throughout the day. Any mother could have told them for $5. Where do you check for a fever? The forehead or the back of the hand? Oh, honey, you got a fever. And which hand, by the way, right or left hand? Well, the heart is slightly off center, so the blood has to go a little further to your right hand so it has a chance to cool off more. There's more temperature change in your right hand than in your left hand throughout the day. So they said, if you're going to put this chip in the person, you'd put it in the forehead or in the right hand. Interesting. This microchip technology has gone crazy in the last 25 years with people doing all kinds of things. They have a new one now called the Mu chip. What do you mean now? This is 2001. This little chip is the size of a period on a page. They can put it inside a piece of paper. You could have every book page microchipped. This kid's real proud of it. He's going to get a microchip implanted. Okay, it's the size of a grain of rice. They use a 12-gauge needle for that one to put it in. Lithium-ion battery. So anyway, there's a lot of this on video number 7. You could mark sex offenders, like Bill Clinton. So there are all kinds of technologies going on. Oh, hang on. What is? I didn't know that. Mondex. Yeah, the microchip technology. It's coming to where you're going to have to receive a mark. I don't think there's going to be a chance for Christians to just stand up and say, "I won't take the chip." It's just a simple matter. Oh, you don't have a microchip, you can't buy or sell. Suppose today the stores stopped taking cash and stopped taking credit cards and stopped taking debit cards. Only those with a chip can buy or sell. What would we do? That's what's coming. It'll just be a slow, gradual squeezing. Oh, you don't have a chip? I'm sorry, you're squeezed out of society. You cannot buy or sell without a microchip, period. That's what's coming. HARP technology, that's another long story. Okay, go ahead.
All right, and then we have a question that asks, when did Satan get thrown out of heaven? And where is it mentioned in the Bible,
first slide.
It is mentioned in the Bible? And then kind of revolving around that, is the devil's lair located somewhere inside the earth?
One at a time here. When did Satan get thrown out of heaven? I think it is... No, close this down and go to part 2. 2A. I have over 7,000 slides. And by the way, my Theodore, my computer guy, I fixed him up with a Russian girl. I told him about the Russian women, never complain, never argue, all that kind of stuff. I basically lied to him. But he's down in Portland, Oregon. But Theodore has got all my slides on a thumb drive for $50, all 7,000 of my slides you can get. I think that's already now. If not, it is soon. Let's see. Click on click on gap theory. See if that does it. Okay. The gap theory says between the first 2 verses of Genesis, there's billions of years in there. This is not true, by the way, but that is what the theory teaches. J. Sidlow Baxter said, between the first 2 verses of Genesis, there's ample scope for all the geologic eras. That's where you put the millions of years. He said there was a pre-Adamite rebellion, and the judgment of Lucifer happened. Hold on a minute. When did Lucifer get thrown out of heaven? Which is your question here. Okay. They say in verse number 2, the earth was without form and void, which is true. Then the gap theory folks will say, aha, Satan fell from heaven, destroyed the earth, and God had to fix it up for the next 6 days. Sounds good. Not true at all, though. Okay. There's lots of them in the gap theory if you want to read more on that. I wrote a book about it. We're going to get it reprinted here soon. Let's see. Without form and void. Exodus 20 in the 10 Commandments says, in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is. Well, if he made everything in 6 days, then there's no gap between the first 2 verses. Can't be. Because he made everything in those 6 days. And he rested on the 7th day. All through the Bible it talks about the 7th day. Very definite. The 7th day. So, there's a lot on that. Let's see. And man brought sin into the world. Death came because of Adam's sin. By man came death. Death reigned from Adam to Moses. Nothing died before Adam sinned. And the gap theory folks will say that Satan fell from heaven and destroyed the pre-Adamite world. Whoa. Nobody here before Adam, according to the Bible anyway. Let's see. Replenish the earth. They'll say, see, that means you had to fill it again. No, the word replenish in Old English simply meant fill. Today, the dictionary says replenish means to make full again. That's correct. That's what the word means today. But the Hebrew word male just means fill. Just fill the earth. God said, go fill the earth. In 1611, the word simply meant fill. In 1650, a second definition was added to the dictionary, fill again. Notice, replenish means to fill. This is an 1828 dictionary. Secondary meaning means recover former fullness. Yeah, let's go fill it again. In 1891, the word replenish just meant fill. 1892, the first meaning was to fill again. Oh, what happened to the primary meaning? They took it out. So what happened when evolution became popular, Satan plans long term apparently, the word replenish used to mean just simply fill. Now it means fill again, so people can say, oh, see, there's a gap between the first two verses. And which I think is totally, totally wrong. English words change meaning sometimes, okay? When I was a kid, the word cool meant not hot. Oh, that's cool. What? That's not hot. When I was a kid, the word gay meant happy. How many remember those days? Come on now, be honest, okay? James 2, you have to respect him that weareth the gay clothing. Would you say that to somebody today? Oh, you have gay clothing on. The word let used to mean hindered. I was hindered from doing something. I was let. Today it means the opposite. So the word replenish just meant fill. We know Lucifer was in Eden from Ezekiel 28. Lucifer was in Eden. He was created. It says, in the day that thou wast created. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created. Lucifer was created. And the Garden of Eden wasn't made till day 6. And Lucifer was in Eden until he sinned. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. So Lucifer was in Eden until he sinned, when he got proud and said, I'm going to be a god. We cover all that on video too. So there cannot be a gap between the first two verses of Genesis. Satan got thrown out of heaven probably 100 years after the creation. All we know is Adam was 130 when Seth was born. I've got it right here, I think. Adam's 130 when Seth is born. Before that, they had Cain and Abel, but no dates are given. Before that, they were kicked out of the garden. I don't know how old Cain was when he killed Abel. Let's say they're in their 20s, okay? 30s. I don't know. So Adam and Eve might have been in the garden in perfect harmony, fellowship with God for 100 years. They sin, get kicked out. Then they have Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel. Then they have Seth at age 130. Not a problem at all. So certainly Satan fell from heaven after the creation, because on day 7, God looked at everything and said it was very good. Satan had not fallen yet. Okay?
All right, and then just to kind of repeat, but ask this one question again. So do you say that the devil's lair is at the center of the earth, possibly, like where the core is at, or would you say no?
I don't think the Bible tells us where the devil's lair is, where he lives. Apparently he has access back and forth to heaven right now. We see twice in the book of Job, chapter 1 and chapter 2, where the sons of God assembled before God. We presume that to be in heaven. And someday he will be kicked out of heaven, probably in the middle of the 7-year period called the tribulation. I think that's when he gets kicked out and not allowed to come back. So then he's kicked out. I'll tell you what, can you go to the totally different, not in even this presentation. Did you download the other folder marked End Times on the brick? If so, if you go to End Times, if you have that, go to 4A. I'm putting together PowerPoint to go along with my book, What on Earth is About to Happen, for heaven's sake. What the Bible teaches, what's coming next. I had to switch my theology while I was in prison. I used to believe in the pre-trib rapture. He can come any minute, and it's just not true. Did you not get that folder? Okay, don't worry about it then.
Next question. Is cloning possible? And I'm assuming this is human.
Go to
cloning.
7A, or part 7 again. Cloning is taking the DNA out of a molecule, out of a cell, and putting it into another cell and causing it to reproduce and create life. So it's a really cool genetic trick. Cloning, is that on there? Try the second page here. Yeah, top left, okay. What about cloning? There is some uncertainty of what might happen if man messes with cloning. I don't know. But, let's see. The DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, is the most complicated molecule in the universe. There is more information in one person's DNA than all the computer codes ever written by man combined. You are more complicated than all the computers ever together. Okay? If you stretched out the DNA from just your body, you'd only fill about 2 tablespoons, your DNA would, but it would reach from Earth to the moon and back. If you stretched out your DNA, just yours, got it here somewhere, if I can get it to advance. There. It would go from Earth to the moon and back 550,000 times. There's a lot of code written in your DNA. More complicated than all the computer codes ever combined, okay? So what they're doing is they're taking an incredibly complex DNA code and transplanting it to another cell. They're not creating anything. It's like moving the hard drive from one computer into another computer. Okay, pretty cool, but it's not making anything. There's enough DNA code in your body, if you typed it out, it would fill Grand Canyon with the books you'd have to have 440 times. Would fill Grand Canyon. That's the instructions to make you. Dolly was cloned, the first sheep ever done that I'm aware of, first mammal. Took them 277 tries. It cost $50,000 to make Dolly. What would the price of lamb chops be? They said, Hovind, we're able to clone a sheep. What do you think now? I said, look, the sheep can do this a whole lot cheaper and quicker. Let them go in the pasture. They'll be fine. Okay, they'll figure it out. It's a lot cheaper than $50,000 for a sheep. Plus, Dolly died 4 years earlier than normal because they took a 4-year-old cell to get it. Well, duh. They didn't gain anything. I think it's dumb. I think cloning is happening. I think it has happened. Whether they've done it with humans or not, I don't know. I doubt it. But if they have, it wouldn't matter. It's still not going to gain anything. You're not going to get anything. Oh, poisonous snakes. So I think cloning is being done with mammals and maybe has been done with humans. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I think it's a waste of time.
All right, and then we have a question that I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but if we as humans are created in God's image and we are superior to animals, why is it that our biological makeup is like the 99.9%? Why is it that to the world we seem so similar to animals with our traits?
I think we are similar to animals for multiple reasons. Number one, we have the same creator, the same guy designed us. The Honda Accord and the Honda Prelude and the Honda Civic have lots of similarities because they're all coming from Honda. Okay? Secondly, if we didn't have these similarities to the other animals, we couldn't eat them and digest them. See, the brown cow can eat the green grass and give the white milk, and I can drink it and get the blonde hair. Figure that out, okay? Yeah, because the same molecules, the same, of course, there's only 26 letters in the English alphabet. With those 26 letters, how many different words can you make? A whole bunch. And with how many books could be written with the English language? An infinite number. It is infinite. You could never run out of possible ways to combine the letters and then the words, okay? So if I looked at the Macbeth, the plays that Shakespeare wrote, I look at Hamlet and Macbeth, I would notice there are thousands of similarities, same expressions, same lines. What does that prove? Well, they're coming from the same mind. His name was Billy Wigglestick. I mean Shakespeare. Wigglestick. Never mind. So, of course, there's similarities in the structure of the different animals because the same guy designed them all. Now, the evolutionist looks at that and sees, wow, proof for evolution. The creationist is looking at the same information saying, hey, that's proof for creation. So it's different ways of how they want to interpret it. Okay?
Thank you very much. We had a lot of questions that we had to either paraphrase or skip. So if you have more questions, I'm assuming that your DVDs would help with that. We want to finish with just more of a personal question. When a lot of people, when they go to the internet to find out about you, they read all of the things about imprisonment and all of that. Could you speak a little bit to that, about the truth of it and possibly what you learned from it?
Okay, in the folder that you guys did you get the miscellaneous PowerPoint folder? Miscellaneous PowerPoint, it's a whole folder as opposed to a PowerPoint. If you did, go to DAL 2005, DAL Dinosaur Adventureland 2005. You do have that one? Okay. It's just a whole folder marked miscellaneous PowerPoint. I've lived in Pensacola since 1989. In 1990, we moved into the house that we're still in, 29 Cummings Road. People started watching my videos, and when they came to Florida, they would stop in and, hey, how you doing, Brother Hovind? And they wanted to spend time with me and meet me. So I started entertaining people all the time at my house if I was home. I still do. People had come from Germany 2 days ago when I was home. So people all the time. You don't have it, or you do? Miscellaneous PowerPoint. Okay. Anyway, in my backyard, we slowly bought up several houses in the neighborhood to gradually expand because we had so many people coming. We decided to make it Dinosaur Adventureland, a theme park, a museum, a science center, to put all the stuff I have on display, like the Ica stones with dinosaurs and humans together, the giant human thigh bone. Well, let's make a display for it. So we ended up with 100,000 people coming through my backyard to see all the stuff I have. And we had all kinds of fun science activities and different science lessons, spiritual lessons, so we called it Dinosaur Adventureland. Anyway, we were buying up houses in the neighborhood to expand as we could. And our neighborhood's an older neighborhood built in the 50s, so all of the houses needed extensive work, okay? They were all falling apart. And so we had a lot of college students come work for me when they could, come work at our ministry. And they'd say, hey, Brother Hovind, I got 3 hours free till my next class. What can I do? And so we'd say, here, take the pickup truck. Here's $3,000. Go buy shingles for this house and go buy plywood for this house. And we're doing all this building of our Dinosaur Adventureland. So in 1999, up until 2002, we dealt with a lot of cash as we're building our Dinosaur Adventureland and remodeling these houses for our staff to live in. God was blessing our ministry. The pastor said, try to keep your withdrawals under $10,000, or else they're going to think you're a drug dealer. Because the bank has some law they have to follow that Congress passed. Any withdrawals or transactions over $10,000, the bank has to fill out a form. And so you try to keep it under $10,000 so the bank doesn't fill out that form, and that'll get you on the radar and they'll think you're a drug dealer. I said, I've never even tasted alcohol. I'm 63. I've never had beer, wine, alcohol. I had NyQuil a couple times. But anyway, so every 2 weeks, my wife would go down and get $9,500 out of the bank, cash, to keep on hand for all these projects we had going. Finally, 2002, I called everybody in. I said, listen, I'm a little nervous about my wife carrying all this cash every 2 weeks to keep on hand for these projects. I'm going to get a couple of credit cards. And I'm going to trust you college students to take the keys to the truck and the credit card and to come back. As you can go a long ways with a truck and a credit card. So 2002, we stopped all the cash transactions and went with credit cards. No big deal. 2006, July 13th, the IRS came swarming into my house with a SWAT team. I'm sitting at the table getting ready for devotions, with the staff devotion. My wife is sound asleep in bed. She got to bed at 3 in the morning because she broke her tailbone years ago. Had a lot of pain. She had a hard time going to sleep. Anyway, so she's sound asleep. SWAT team went in there, surrounded her bed, told her to get out of bed, wouldn't let her get dressed, put a robe on, or go to the bathroom. They took her in handcuffs down to the courthouse in her nightgown. She's 50 years old at the time, a grandma. And so they took us both down to the courthouse in handcuffs. I said, what on earth do you want? What happened? I said, the judge will tell you. We found out we got arrested for structuring. I said, I've never heard of that. What is it? They said, 5 years ago, you took your money out of the bank in amounts less than $10,000. Yeah? Okay. Yep, you're arrested for that. You got to be kidding. No, they weren't kidding. They said not only, they said the drug dealers learned to avoid that law that the bank has about filling out a form. They would go in the morning and take out $9,500, and then go in the afternoon and take out $9,500. So they're structuring their transactions to evade the reporting requirement. So our brilliant Congress passed another law that says if you do 2 transactions in one day that are each one is under 10, but the total is over 10. You just structured your transactions to evade the reporting requirement. Okay, we never did that. 1 transaction, 12 days later, 1 more transaction. Never 2 in one day. Never. Okay, which is what the law says. So they're going through this trial. I said, this is stupid. What did I do? My attorney said, Kent, don't even give a defense. There was no crime here. The law says 2 transactions in one day that are under 10, but they total over 10. The law says more than 10,000. Oh, okay. So we didn't even give a defense. After trial, the judge changed the jury instructions, which is illegal to do, and the judge said to the jury, if you find they took out less than 10,000, you must find them guilty. Objection, that's not what the law says. Overruled. So the jury says, well, yeah, of course they took out less than 10,000. Duh, who doesn't? So they found us guilty. The judge said, Hovind, your crime is worse than rape. Maximum sentence is 6 months, which would be probation, first time ever in the courthouse. I didn't know where the courthouse was until that trial. Okay. She said, the woman judge, she said, I'm enhancing this to 10 years. Gave me a 10-year sentence for structuring, which I had never heard of. They immediately took me off to prison from the courtroom, November 2nd, 2006. I didn't get back home for nearly 9 years. They moved me 32 times while I was in the federal prison system, moved me all over the country. While I was there, I led Bible studies 4 times a day, led 800 men to the Lord, wrote 37 books, and earned 2 more doctor's degrees. So I tried to use my time wisely. And answered 18,000 letters and cried a bucket of tears. I said, I want to get out of here. But anyway, so the structuring law is what I went to prison for. Then the U.S. attorney said, now, that money that was structured 5 years ago, that needs to be paid to the government. That $400,000 that was withdrawn over that 3-year period to pay for all this remodeling and fixing up stuff and buying property, that should go to the government. What? It was church money out of a church bank account for a church bills. I owe you $400,000. You're giving me 10 years in prison plus I owe you $400,000? Yeah. Well, then they found out I don't own anything. I live in a church parsonage. I drive a church van. The church pays my bills. Okay. They said, we want to seize the church property. So they put in a motion, can we seize the ministry property, creation, science, evangelism? Glenn, the trustee, said, excuse me, you can't seize that. That belongs to the ministry. Why don't you go seize Walmart or Kmart? They got more money. Why would you seize our church property for his bill? We demand a trial or a hearing. Is Glenn here today? He lives near here. He's up in Everett, Washington. He was going to come maybe tomorrow. Glenn said, you can't seize the church property over his bill. We want a trial. That was never found by the jury. So after 7 months of sitting on the judge's desk, the judge just ruled, yep, you can seize the church property. No trial, no hearing, nothing. So the U.S. attorney went down, seized the church properties, all of them, all the stuff we'd worked on, put them in the name of the government, then went down and seized the church bank account. Then a couple weeks later, that same U.S. attorney flew to Detroit to have sex with a 5-year-old. Turns out it was a sting operation, the FBI set up. He gets off the airplane with Vaseline and a doll, and they arrest him coming off the plane, and he hangs himself in jail. You can Google J.D. Roy Atchison, October 5th, 2007. That's the guy that said, we got to seize this church property to pay this structured funds. It was just one of the most insane cases in American history, I think. Anyway, so I sat in jail for almost 9 years. Got out 8 months ago, July 8th of 2015, and they still have all the properties, except what my son was able to buy back. I had to buy it back off just so we'd have a place to stay. So it's a really bizarre case. Now, there is a website, if you want to get all the facts on, if you go to Wikipedia, you don't believe anything they tell you, okay? Someone told me, Brother Hovind, there's a lesbian atheist in charge of making sure your site never gets changed on Wikipedia. Wikipedia, you can go in and add stuff and change things. Try to change Kent Hovind's. Just try. It won't change. They got to make sure we make this guy look bad. Okay. Anyway, so there's a website called freekenthovind.com, which has the whole case and a ton of interviews I did on this topic. And it's not over yet. In about 2 to 3 weeks, there's going to be a notice put up on that website and many other websites, because some people in some other countries they're so angry what our government did to me. They're saying, we got to stop this. And they found the government broke about 45 different laws in my case to put me in jail. And they found a way to get around it. They found a way to get it overturned still. So I want you to watch freekenthovind.com. There's going to come up a notice on there and other websites. It's going to say, oh, if you'd like to help, do this. It'll tell you exactly what to do. If we can get 10,000 people to do that, send in a certified mail. Letter's going to cost you $3, okay? Send certified mail, what they tell you to do. This case can still be overturned. And they'll owe me $8.8 million for false incarceration. If I can't spend it, my wife says she'll help.
Thank you for answering that question. Can we all stand and bless our brother? And I'll be inviting our pastor here to join us.